Italy has won 4 World Cups and produced legends in football like Dino Zoff, Maldini, Baresi and Roberto Baggio. It was one of the football giants and defined the art of defending. Yet today, Italian football is in crisis. 3 consecutive failures to qualify for the World Cup has caused not only a crisis in the Italian footballing organisations, but also at government level. Resignations, bitter arguments with UEFA, accusations of government interference, and frankly a civil war over the future of Italian football. But there's an astonishing part to this story, that Roberto Baggio, one of the greatest footballers in Italian and actually football history, saw this some long time ago. He analysed it and he even helped produce a report on how to fix the problem. He was ignored, and perhaps now Italy is paying the price. Today we're uncovering the scandal of the politics, the drama and the missed opportunities that have brought one of football's great nations to its knees. Italian football is tactical, competitive, but slow. Unlike Spain, there are more teams that can win Serie A, but at the same time, the games are more likely to finish 0-0. There are less goals than comparable European leagues. Italian clubs struggle for revenue. The stadiums and infrastructure needs a lot of investment and reinvigoration. Many of the stadiums were last updated in time for the Italian '90 World Cup. The redesign of stadiums is more difficult for Italian clubs because the land is often owned by the local authority, and then as soon as they start to develop, the local authority ties up the building with bureaucracy. This significantly ties the hands of Italian clubs to increase matchday revenue with things like bars, restaurants, shops, that kind of thing, as other competing European clubs do. And the revenue it does raise, including the winning bonuses, focuses on 3 clubs: Juventus, AC Milan and Inter Milan, known as Internazionale. Indeed, 45% of the revenue can go to these 3 clubs, which are based in Turin and Milan in northern Italy, and are typically the clubs that win the trophies. An Italian team, Inter Milan, led by Jose Mourinho, last won the Champions League in 2010 along with the treble. This was the oldest team to win the Champions League final. The average age of the team was 30 years old. Since then, only Juventus and Inter Milan have competed and failed to win in Champions League finals since. In Serie A, only 1/3 of players are Italian. There are lots of inexpensive veteran foreign players who play in the league, and this blocks the ability of young players to gain experience. Foreign players play 2/3 of the time during matches, whereas young Italian players typically play 2% of match time. Now, this is a very complicated situation because the EU, the European Union, forbids any kind of discrimination towards foreign players, quotas, anything like that. And there is no way that Italian players can play in a way that discriminates against other players from the EU. The EU considers a homegrown player as anyone who has trained in that country for 3 years before they're the age of 21. Consequently, a lot of clubs across Europe recruit young players from abroad knowing they're going to qualify as homegrown players. In addition, there are a lot of players who arrive as foreigners and then qualify as dual citizenship. Juventus has 20 foreign players in its first team squad. Inter Milan has 15 and famously Como have 29. Okay, I'm telling a miserable story about the terrible state of Italian football, but where does Roberto Baggio fit in? Roberto Baggio is a revered Italian footballer known as Il Divino Codino, the divine ponytail. This was for a lot of reasons, partly because of his hairstyle at the time. He was clearly one of the greatest footballers of all time, and obviously famously because he's a Buddhist. FIFA World Player of the Year, Ballon d'Or winner. At the 1994 World Cup, Roberto Baggio, despite being injured, almost single-handedly dragged Italy to the finals and missed one of the most dramatic penalties in a penalty shootout in the history of football. He's the only Italian to score in 3 separate World Cups. Across Italy, he's almost universally revered. Let's move forward a little bit. Into 2010, Italy did not proceed beyond the group stages of the World Cup. Roberto Baggio was appointed technical director at the FIGC, Federazione Italiana Gioco Calcio, the Italian Federation of Football, in 2010. He worked with colleagues to produce a 900-page report detailing the problems and proposing the solutions to the problems of Italian football. So what was the conclusions of his report? He wanted to overhaul the youth academy of football in Italy. He wanted more focus on technique rather than competing to win youth matches. He wanted to create a network of football schools, as you'll find in Spain and Holland. He wanted to invest heavily in regional schools of coaching with consistent coaching and very good pitches. He wanted to also set up a digital tracking system to monitor the progress of young players so that their development is managed in a consistent way. He was also very keen that the youth prospects continued to study academically in case the football career did not materialise. Having been largely ignored, Roberto Baggio stepped down in 2013. We'll now fast forward to 2026. The Federazione Italiana Gioco Calcio, FIGC, is now engulfed with a political and a sporting scandal. And this is because Italy has failed to qualify for the World Cup for the 3rd consecutive time. It lost a match against Bosnia-Herzegovina. This soon descended into a national and political scandal. And teenage children are now asking why they've never seen Italy play in the World Cup finals. Sports Minister Andrea Abbodi was furious and he demanded reform. He said football needs to be rebuilt and this process must begin with the renewal of the FIGC leadership. The first head to roll was the head of the FIGC between 2018 and 2026, Gabriele Gravina. He was soon followed by the resignation of the coach, Gennaro Gattuso, and the FIG ambassador, Gianluigi Buffon, who's a legendary goalkeeper. New FIGC president, Giovanni Malagò, appointed legendary footballer Paolo Maldini as technical director, who was supported by advisor Leonardo. They soon fell out over bids to hire Pep Guardiola and Carlo Ancelotti. Maldini and Leonardo began negotiations with Andrea Pirlo, another successful Italian footballer, to take him on as the coach. But this appointment was blocked by Giovanni Malagò, who objected to Pirlo's recent dealings with a Russian betting company. Giovanni Malagò vetoed the appointment of Pirlo, preferring instead Roberto Mancini or Antonio Conte, both former coaches of Italy. So let's get to Tuesday of this week. Leonardo and Maldini resigned. They resigned because the appointment of Pirlo was blocked, and they claimed this was due to political interference. Maldini left with the parting shot, "They do not want change." Italian government attempts to restructure FIGC weren't that successful either. This soon escalated into arguments with UEFA. UEFA President Alexander Seferin stated that any form of government interference would violate the autonomy of the footballing authorities, and the consequences of this would affect Italy's attempt to host the Euro finals in 2032, and this was seen as a key means to upgrade the stadiums in Italy. So why was Mancini and Conte so controversial as options? Both were very good players, successful. Conte played with Juventus. Roberto Mancini played with Sampdoria, a smaller side but was really successful, albeit he felt he was sometimes treated differently for not playing for one of the big teams. Both Conte and Mancini had volatile temperaments, which did get them into trouble from time to time. Conte was pragmatic. He would scout South America to look for players of Italian heritage and use them in the Italian team, whereas Mancini had a very different idea. He viewed it, the Italian national team must be Italian. He gave debuts to young players, including players who'd never played in Serie A, the top league. Mancini enjoyed success at the Euro 2020, where Italy won and where he was supported by his long-standing but ailing colleague, the much beloved and much missed Gianluca Vialli. We get to Wednesday's bombshell. Claudio Ranieri was appointed technical director and Roberto Mancini was appointed CT, Commissario Tecnico, the coach. So what's the problem? Mancini has enjoyed managerial success in many places, including in England, where he won titles with Manchester City particularly. However, that role was not without some controversy. Manchester City is still defending 115 charges of financial irregularities, including allegations of concealed payments. But the real drama kicked in 2022. Italy infamously lost to North Macedonia, and this meant Italy did not qualify for the World Cup. Mancini managed to convert a disaster into crisis. He promptly resigned and took up a role with Saudi Arabia. Now, this was viewed by the Italian public as unpatriotic, leaving the Italian national side in a mess and travelling abroad to follow the money. Ranieri was viewed differently. He'd enjoyed success, particularly in England, in the English Premiership, where he won the English Premiership famously with Leicester City, a smaller side, and he remains highly respected. However, the consensus of the appointments of both Ranieri and Mancini is a look back at the past rather than forging a bright new future for Italy. It was not surprising that at the first press conference, Mancini's first comment before a question was asked was to apologise for his conduct in 2023. It's fair to say a lot of Italians aren't particularly interested in hearing that apology. Ranieri took a different view in the press conference. He said he was going to better understand some of the problems, but he did notably point out that developing youth talent was proving very expensive and beyond the means of some families. He also noted that youngsters these days have a lot more interests beyond just football. Il Divino Codino must be just shaking his head in disbelief. The major daily sports newspaper, La Gazzetta dello Sport, is continuing to campaign and ask, why is Baggio's report still collecting dust on the shelf? Of course, all this chaos could turn out to be a good sign. In 1982, Enzo Bearzot famously fell out with reporters, which was better than the players. The players actually refused to speak to the reporters and refused to do any press conferences. And the upshot of all this, in 1982, Italy won both the World Cup and they won the tournament's top scorer with Paolo Rossi, who was the subject of a number of controversies in the run-up to the tournament. So now where are we? Well, there's ongoing discussions about engaging Gianfranco Zola, who famously was appointed by Napoli to replace Maradona. There will be a brief pause as Italy now mourns the death of the much loved and the much respected Franco Baresi. He would appear in any shortlist of greatest centre-backs of all time anywhere in the world. You may have noticed some of the posts made by players, including Maldini, but not exclusively Maldini. He was extremely respected. And for those who think about Maldini was better than Baresi, bear in mind Maldini looked up to Baresi. Rest in peace. All I can say, it's quite clear that this scandal is going to continue for some time. But it's worth looking out for September. Italy is due to play in the UEFA Nations League in September 2026. They are playing Belgium and Turkey. It will be very interesting to see what happens before, during and after those matches.
Click here to get even closer to Italy and Sicily.